Hello, and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self-care, self-love, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a community where we support one another to get to the next level in personal life and business life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Gloria, a woman's relationship and fulfillment coach who helps women heal from emotional abuse for good and go from breakup to breakthrough. You know her message is important. So let's this conversation started. Welcome, Gloria, to my show. So tell us, what is Life with Gloria all about?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm very grateful. So thank you for having me. What is Life with Gloria all about? Oh my goodness. So it used to be about a lot of stress, a lot of, insecurity, a lot of unfulfillment, a lot of fear, being stuck, being unhealthy, like emotionally, and mentally as well. It used to be about a lot of that, but thankfully it's no longer. It changed. Now it's about empowering others. Now that I've had my own journey, it's about giving back. I've had the pleasure, and we can talk about it a little bit deeper later if you want, but I've had the incredible life experience of being able to leave a relationship, a 15-year long relationship with a man with narcissistic tendencies. And I've managed to let that out of my life. I've managed to close that chapter. And once I did, I literally saw life change before my eyes. Like, it was like my internal change was reflecting an external, a completely different experience externally, right? So I was seeing people, approaching me in a different way. People were saying that they were inspired. People were saying, but how did you do it? What would you recommend for this? What would you do with that? And then, so that's when I decided. So I said, oh, hang on a minute here. Clearly what I've done, means something. It was not only about saving myself and getting myself out of that, toxic environment that was causing me so many problems. But it has an effect on other people too. And when and it was very amazing, it was so fulfilling when people were coming to me and saying, oh my God, yes, please, how do I do this? Like, can you talk to me a little bit more about that? And I thought, well, yeah, I can. And then I decided, but I can also take it a step further and do something else. I can also go and qualify and do a full qualification, full certification in life coaching, and then specialize in what was my problem before. So I can help people not only with the advice of my own, life experience, but I can actually help them through the process. And so that's what I did. So life now is very much about helping others and offering. Obviously, there has been further growth from when I left, and from when I first qualified as a coach. So the more I'm learning, the more I integrate with my practice, and the more I share it with the people who work with me, with my clients. And I hope that they, find their own way to go through their journey and sort of, and heal, not sort of, and fully heal, themselves, because it is possible, 100%.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes, girl, talk to me about that healing part. I'm still in the process. And
Yeah.
some days I'm like, yes, I'm healed. And some days I'm like, oh my God, this is it. I'm going to die and I'm never going to heal.
Yeah. Do you know what? There's this saying, which I don't know whether I used to agree with it a lot. And then recently, this year, I've had another jump of growth. It sort of happened in my life. You know, when sometimes, like, you know, you hit a plateau and then all of a sudden, boom, like you're like, okay, now I've advanced like so much in the space of like 3 months, you know? And so I had another one of those sort of jumps this year, and it made me rethink that phrase. You know, when people say, you know, you never finished healing, you never stopped healing, you know, there's always some work to do. I'm gonna question that now and say yes and no, meaning that, you know, there's always discovering yourself, and that's an amazing thing to do, but you can actually put something to rest forever. That's possible, you know, and whether you want to keep growing, you know, and keep you know, developing yourself and your, you know, your emotions and who you are as a person and everything, yes. But in terms of healing, I truly do want to believe that there's a moment when you can say, okay, that's it, I'm done with that, you know, I'm gonna put it to rest, and that's a different part of my life now, and it's not gonna bother me anymore. I think I want to believe that that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that because like certain things I know that I still gotta work on, but then
Hmm.
there's other things that I talk about it and it's not even a trigger or
Yeah.
not might puts me on a nervous system going crazy or nothing like that. So yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you told me a little bit before the interview, girl. Tell me all about what you offer.
Yeah, so as I said, like my whole thing has been a process. So when I first qualified, I qualified in normal, you know, personal performance life coaching. So it's all about getting yourself to, you know, grow basically, and obviously then specialized in healing from emotionally abusive relationship, dysfunctional relationships, and all that side of things. But then during my own journey, I discovered different things that, had I known them when I was going through my journey, I think they would have had a major influence. And I think they would have probably jumped, you know, made me jump even further with my growth and gave me a different kind of awareness and understanding. So, first of all, the one thing that I didn't know during my own healing journey was neuroscience. So I am so passionate about neuroscience, and I read so much, and I am able to explain things, how they work in our brain, to my clients. And when I do that, they have all of a sudden such a different awareness of their way of thinking. And when you do that, then it's so much easier to get out of it. You know, it's so much easier to get to unravel the knot, you know, of keeping yourself in a way of thinking and in a mindset that is not useful to you. But I find that it took me a long time because I didn't have that basic understanding. And but now I do, and I am able to share it with my clients as well, and they have a much quicker uh turnaround, let's say. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You are up to something because that is 1,000% true. For a decade, I have been going nuts. Okay. So I finally said, enough is enough. Let me understand my brain.
Mhm.
So I went for a mental health evaluation. I still haven't, well, by the time the episode goes live, I had already talked about it because this is going to be in October and it's the beginning of September. But is severe depression, moderate to severe anxiety, dependency personality disorder. I created a new category for anger, bipolar, ADHD.
Mhm.
Once I got, first of all, when I answered those questions for the mental health evaluation, I felt such compassion for myself because I was like, if my bestie, if my work wife, I have nicknames for my friends, um, were to talked to me like I answered those questions, I would have been like, girl, what is wrong with you? Like, get your life together. Come on, let's go get some ice cream. Let's go to the park, But for me, it's like, oh, you should be ahead of the game. You should have your life together. You're so stupid. Look at that. You're so miserable, but blah, 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 right?
Mhm.
Okay, fine. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I get my diagnosis. I
Mhm.
am crying, laughing. And he's like, oh, can you relate? I said, who told you about me? Now you got too much information about me. I don't like this. But even though I knew, having the validation and calling it a name,
Mhm.
now when I feel cuckoo, I'm like, okay, this is anxiety.
Mhm.
Why
Yeah.
is anxiety here? Which I knew I could do that before, but I don't know. Understanding your brain, I guess you can separate yourself from it and then treat your brain like a best friend. So sorry, I was like mind blown. I was like, oh my God, yes,
It
you're up to
is.
something because I just felt that.
Yeah, 100. I think you're absolutely right. You are what you just said about when you understand how your brain works, you can treat it as a different thing. Yes, 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 yes. Like 100% yes. It's because okay. So the thing about the brain, it's not made to make us happy. Okay? The primarily function of the brain isn't to make us happy. Okay? We think that it is, but it's not. The primarily function of the brain is to keep us safe. Okay? So, and we teach the brain what it is that is safe means to us through our life experiences. Okay? So the way anxiety is created, for example, is a way of protection against something that we think it's danger. It's all the brain, right? Against something that we think it's danger. And it can be created in our thoughts. So if it's a cortex-based anxiety, or it could be an amygdala-based anxiety, which is the amygdala is a little like gland inside of our brain here at the back, in the middle of our brain, which is the center of our emotions, is what controls our emotions. So it can come from either our thoughts, the anxiety, or from our emotions. But whichever way it comes to, it's a response to something that we have perceived as danger. And how do we know that something is dangerous for us? Because it's hurt us before, or because somebody that we really trusted told us that it would be dangerous. So a lot of the stuff happens in childhood when we learn about things. You also learn that the brain it has different stages in life, and when you're very little, between 0 and 7 years old, you're literally a sponge. Anything that a figure of authority, could be your parents, older siblings, or teachers at school, or anyone, any figure of authority says to you when you are in those, in those years, will stay with you forever. So if the information that you got is in some way detrimental to you, that's going to stay. And that's going to grow up with you until one day it shows up as a random reaction to something in the form of, for example, like you said, anxiety. Right? It's all a process. I'm really jumping from like one thing to the other here, because
No, I love it.
there's so much to say, but I think that you're absolutely right there. Like, once we understand how it is that we come to learn things, and how it is that we come to learn things, and how it is that we process information, and how it is that we think that our thoughts make us who we are. So once we sort of understand these things, we understand that we're separate from our thoughts, we understand that we can change the way we think, we understand that we can actually make our brain work for us. When we understand and see and have a look at the way that we feel now, and maybe go back and see what could have taught us that when we were kids, like what could have happened in childhood that made me think this now that I'm an adult. So I'm going to give you like a very like practical, super practical example on, for example, anxiety, right? So it could be that somebody has the anxious reaction to a car horn, right? Whenever they are in traffic, that there's a lot of like car beeping and stuff like that, it happens that, maybe their stress levels gets high and their, heartbeat goes faster, and they experience anxiety and high levels of stress. There has been a study that has shown that the majority of the people that experience that, the level of anxiety triggered by a car horn, actually were involved in car accidents. So, and that would have been the last sound that they heard before a crash. So, see what the brain does there? So you are in a situation of danger, you're about to crash with another car, you push the, you push the car horn, it makes that sound, and then that sound associated with an extreme moment of stress and danger, it gets imprinted in your brain, and it translates as, every time you hear a car horn, there's danger, so you have to be careful.
Yeah.
And the way that the brain tells you that you have to be careful about something is through the stress levels, because the stress level is the alarm bell, right? So it's showing you that stress so that you can do something about it, and you can go back and make yourself safe, essentially. Another thing could be, somebody being really afraid of, I don't know, being really afraid of trees, climbing up trees. Why? And then you discover that maybe in childhood they actually fell from a tree and broke an arm. And that these are like physical things that I'm saying to you, but it can be around emotional and psychological. It is the majority of the time around emotional and psychological things as well. Think about how many people that have been bullied in childhood grow up to be, with anxiety disorders. Why? Because, you have been told something when you were a kid, you were mocked when you were a kid, and maybe they grow up with an insecurity about a specific part of their body, because maybe that was pointed out to them, but that made them feel so awful that their brain straight away registered it as, this is bad. We need to protect ourselves. Therefore, we have to make sure that for the rest of our lives, we keep this thing under control, and we constantly, for example, for me, it was my weight. I had a mother that was absolutely obsessed with my weight. I was growing at a normal pace. I was doing sports and everything. And then in the year where I, developed into a woman, I put on quite a lot of weight, which is perfectly normal because your hormones go all over the place. You literally develop in a new version, physical version of yourself. So it's absolutely normal for a woman to put on weight during that time of their lives. And I remember my mother telling me off because it wasn't acceptable that I was putting on weight, so much weight within a short space of time. And she started criticizing me. She spent thousands to take me to beauty treatments, which were absolute torture for me. I didn't want to go. I didn't understand why I needed to have that. And I was so young because I was like 14, 13, 14 years old. And what I learned from that then later in the years was to be absolutely super insecure about my body. My body wasn't good enough. I went through yo-yo dieting for a long time in my life. I'm still dealing with some of it now, but now I have that understanding. Now I'm like, well, of course that happened throughout my life, because look at what an awful experience I had when I was in my early teenage years with my own mother, who is supposed to, who we think should give that unconditional love, telling me that me developing into a woman and putting on weight was absolutely not acceptable because my body was becoming, quote unquote, more fat.
Oh, girl, I get it. I just did one interview and I talked about my mom. She's my best friend. I love her to death, but I'm talking about she was with me in 2020. I'm from Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
originally. So they were staying with me because there was a lot of earthquakes.
Okay.
So my mom, lovely as hell, she goes, "Girl, you're putting on some weight. Like, don't you walk for your job? Can they give you more walking? Can you change your eating habits?" Yes, mom, I love you. You're not causing emotional trauma at all,
Yeah.
but I love you.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and this was in 2020. You're already an adult, and
Yes,
it did still hurt and it did still make a mark in your adult life. Imagine when there's parents having this kind of conversation with little kids, how
that's
they
horrible.
grow up, right?
My grandma told me at 9 from paternal side, but they're all special. Like I don't even talk to most of them. Anyways, she told me at 9 years old that princesses are not fat. So I
Oh,
couldn't eat the skin of chicken, fried chicken, because that's gonna make me fat.
yeah. Yeah,
Emotional trauma.
there you go.
It's not funny, but I mean, I
I
love
know.
her too. I love her too. But like I said, I don't speak to that side of the family.
Yeah, absolutely. And but this is it. And then when you but what I want to point out here is that you and I are having a conversation as two people who have been on their journey for a while, and they have come to understanding how certain things work, right? But what what we don't what the majority of people don't realize is that before we got here, we thought that what we were experiencing was normal
Hmm.
and didn't question it for a very long time until something clicked and was like, I'm not sure if this is how actually life is supposed to be, right? So there's a lot of people who are living in that, like you mentioned, emotional trauma, in that hardship, in that high levels of stress, in that high anxiety, thinking that that's normal.
Yeah.
Right. And so and this is what happens during my session when I speak to my clients, and they say, I feel like this, and this is how do I get to control my thoughts, because they're always racing and this and this. So when we dig a little bit deeper and I say, okay, so this is what is happening, this is why the brain is thinking this way, when did you learn this? And I work with them, we work together to find out the root cause of things. And and then when they get the understanding and are like, oh, yes, that's it. And then at that moment, they have the chance and they say, sorry, in that moment, they make the decision and they say, okay, so I thought like this way for X amount of time in my life. It's not going to be easy to change. It's not going to be, for a change from the one day to the other, but certainly having the awareness of why things are the way that they are gives you 50% of the job complete.
Yeah.
At least just the awareness of things, and then it's up to you when you gain that awareness, you know what you're working with. And then when you know what you're working with, you do different adjustments and different things every single day in the way that you think, in the way maybe some choices are going to start being different because you understand yourself better. And do one thing a day, and then 365 days later you have a completely different life. Seriously. you know
Hmm.
and I say this about the normal because me being in a relationship for 15 years with a man with narcissistic tendencies, I thought that that was what a relationship should be like. I genuinely thought that that was it. We were married, and I thought, well, this is what marriage is about. You have to sacrifice. The woman is like this, and you have to, compromise. Until one day I realized that I was the only one bloody compromising all the time, and he wasn't
Yeah.
doing anything at all. If anything, he was actually manipulating me. And then when I gained that awareness, I'm like, let me make a couple of different choices here and see what happens. And then, yeah, I ended up being able to leave that relationship. But yeah, awareness is everything.
Yeah. So take us through your programs.
Mm. So, okay, so another other few things that I've added to my toolbox, for example, astrology. and moonology. So I do truly believe that we do certain things with what's available to us, but I think that we have so much available that we cannot see. And when
Yeah.
we understand what we're working with, we understand the concept of energy and how we can actually, work with, attuned, for example, to the cycles of nature and everything, life becomes truly very much more effortless and uncomplicated, because instead of racing on our own track, we are working with the cycles of nature, and we're doing things when the times are favorable. So it's much more less of a much less complicated, much less of an effort, because we're in a flow, right? So how do I work? So I work with people one-to-one, and I really love the one-to-one relationship, because it really allows me to create something that is truly bespoke, because there are all these, like, general concepts, the coaching, the neuroscience, the astrology, the moonology, and everything that apply to everyone. But if I stand in a room and explain it to everyone, everyone is going to take their little bits. But if I am just in a room with one person and dedicating everything to them, the experience that they have is so much deeper, and the transformation is so much deeper as well. And I truly love doing that, because it's also never scripted. It's also, we meet for a session, and a session can be that we need to use some astrology, can be that I need to explain something, around the neuroscience concept, or it needs, it is truly bespoke to the person. And I think that it's really, really amazing. I absolutely love working one-to-one. All my one-to-one clients, by the way, they get an astrology birth chart reading.
That's awesome.
Oh, I do offer that separately as well, but anyone who works with me one-to-one gets it as well, included in the package, because I truly believe that it's just another, tool to understand yourself, but more from an energetic level rather than a scientific level or an emotional level, right? So it's more around energies and more around what influence the cosmos had on us at our birth. And I think that's, again, like, it's another way of opening new ways and new things to understand ourselves. And then funny you mentioned your mom, because I do have a program that is just focused on relationship with mothers. And it's for the term is mother wound healing. So it's a mother wound healing program. It's called Inner Freedom. And it's basically focused on the relationship we had with our mom, what we have learned from her, and what we need to, it will take you to a place not only of understanding, but also a place of saying, oh, that this thing that I always thought I was bad at, or that always made me feel so awful, I understand that it's not mine to carry. Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it there. It gives you the opportunity of separating you from the mother, in a good way, not
No,
separate.
yeah, no, 100%. I just triggered my
Psychological.
mom because of my mental health evaluation, and
Mhm.
she went into her. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. You
Yeah,
are you. I'm
yeah,
doing what's best for me, for my mental health. This is not telling you that you're doing anything wrong. I think you're a walking miracle. You have done it without alcohol, without drugs, without meds. I mean, you are fucking amazing. She's
yeah,
still
yeah,
happy and stuff like that. But me, I want more balance. I want more stability. So I'm taking a different route. So
yeah,
yeah, and it's needed because not a lot of people are blessed to have a mom like mine, like even though she got jokes about me being fat and everything else. Or like the other day she told me, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that's we're Christians. So she was like, I'm so glad that salvation is individual thing and I don't have to count on you for my salvation. I was like, oh damn, that hurt. What are you trying to say? But not a lot of people got that kind of relationship with their mom and don't understand about generational curses
Yeah. Yeah.
and what grandma went through, what mom went through, that you
Yeah.
have to, if you want to do the work, you have to work through what they didn't want to deal with.
Yeah, 100%. That's 100% true. And actually, did you know that every person with a female body was in their grandma's uterus when she was pregnant with their mother,
Yeah, that's
right?
insane.
That's absolutely insane. But what that also means is that anything that grandma was carrying has been passed on. The body is the physical, the body is the physical vessel where all of those things are passed through. And she was also, then our mother was in the uterus of her grandmother, so that you can see that the lineage there just goes and goes and goes. And so it's super important to understand. But what's also important to understand is to say, it's you did what you could, you did the best. And thank you for offering me, those things that, you to show me what I could be as an adult. And there is so much power in deciding what you're going to take from your mother. And you know what I mean? In making that empowered decision of like, well, that thing, mom, I'm sorry, but no, that's not for me. I'm not going to take it. And break that cycle and decide to do it differently from yourself. And there's obviously other kinds of unloving mothers with, much more complicated relationships and, very different things. So the program focuses on understanding the different types of mother, and then sort of understanding the experience that you had personally. And then there's a part that is called the healing journey. So there's different techniques that sort of take you through the process of releasing what didn't serve you from that relationship, and empower yourself to make your own decision and to be your own woman. And then the second part of the program is all focused on the reconnection with your authenticity, with your authentic self.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a powerful program. So I think that by the time the podcast comes out, I think we had just closed the doors to the new
Oh
cohort.
yeah, we were talking about it because this will be live in October.
Yeah, but I do believe it's going to be literally like a couple of days after. So if this program around the mother wound, if that resonates with you, please, people in the audience, feel free to reach out. I'm on Instagram. Please feel free to reach out and message me if this interests you. Otherwise, you can always go on the wait list and the next time it comes out. But it's a very, very powerful program. And that's specific on mother. Whether the one-to-one coaching that I do, it's more, any subject that you want to bring, personally, whichever that could be, relationship with partners or, other stuff in life. Some people have very, very unfulfilling work lives. And so we start from there. And then we discover that there's something that happened years ago, random, that has made them have this sort of path unfolding. So whatever it is that you might feel stuck with, a lot of the people, the women that I work with, they, are the kind of people that are got to a certain point in their lives and they're like, is this really it? Like, is this really all there is? Maybe when they were younger, they thought that they had so much, potential, that they wanted to do this and they wanted to do that. And somehow like life served them a different kind of dish. And therefore now they are looking, maybe they're around like 30, 40, 50, and they're like, oh my God, what is this really it? When is it going to be my turn? When is it going to happen for me? Is it ever going to happen? And they're getting really disheartened, feeling really unfulfilled, feeling really unappreciated as well. And so, so usually they come to me and we start digging a little bit and finding out what has happened along the way.
Yeah.
and sort of correct the course, correct the path to where they actually want to go. So yeah, thank you for letting me talk about that.
No, yeah, 100%. I love it, girl. This has been amazing. I had a lot of fun talking to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing a little bit about your story as well, because I didn't know the whole, I didn't know so much about you when we first started talking. So I'm really glad that you brought in some of your examples as well. Thank you.
Hey, it's Life with Francie.
Yeah,
So if I can
absolutely.
relate to something, I'm like, oh, I'm all over it. And I actually like talk more as I have a guest than I do on my solo podcast, because on my solo podcast, I write the content before I go in, because like the ADHD, I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, so the sky is beautiful. And then, I went to the mountain and it's like, oh, hold up, well, we're talking about the sky. Why are you talking about the mountain now? So I write my content to stay, and then I'm very judgmental, like, oh no, I shouldn't say this, I shouldn't say that. But I'm like, you're talking, oh yeah, I got a story for you.
I do like when a conversation flows though. I get what you mean as well. As I said, I'm on Instagram a lot, and when I do a live on Instagram on my own, yes, it's good, but it feel I don't know, like there's that element of connection of having a conversation with another person that sort of makes you, jump here and there and exchange experiences and feelings as well. And I think it's really beautiful. Yeah, the connection element is really powerful, I think.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. And I had a great time. People, get on the waiting list, because this program truly sounds amazing.
Thank you. It's called Inner Freedom, and you can find all the details at my website, which is gloriabattini.com.
I will have it in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming to my show. I really had a great time. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Hope you have a blessed day.